When life throws problems at us, most people panic. The moment a storm comes, their mind races, their heart beats fast, and they lose control. But strong people are different. They face the same storm, the same chaos, but they respond with calmness. And that calmness is what makes them powerful. Calmness is not the absence of problems, it is the strength to not let the problem control you. Imagine a lake. When the water is still, you can see your reflection clearly. But when the water is disturbed, everything looks broken. Our mind works the same way. When we panic, our thoughts get blurry. When we remain calm, solutions become visible. Strong people know this secret. The truth is, problems are never in our control, but our response always is. The calm person is not someone who never feels stress, they feel it like everyone else. But they train their mind to pause before reacting. That pause is where wisdom enters. That pause is where strength is born. Think about it. When a problem hits, you have two choices: react in fear or respond with faith. Strong people choose faith. They tell themselves, this moment will pass, just like every other moment in my life. They understand that every storm runs out of rain. Every dark night ends with the sunrise. So why waste energy panicking when peace can carry you through? Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is the highest form of strength. Anyone can scream, anyone can get angry, anyone can blame. But to remain centered when everything around you is shaking, that is true power. It's like the eye of the storm, still quiet and untouched by the chaos. Strong people stay calm because they know panic does not solve problems, but calmness does. They focus on what can be done, not on what can't. They remind themselves, I am bigger than this problem. I will not let this control my peace. So the next time life tests you, don't ask, why me? Ask, what can I learn? Don't fight the storm. Anchor yourself in patience. Don't rush for answers. Allow calmness to guide you. The world respects the one who can walk through fire with a smile, not the one who burns in his own anger. Remember, strength is not measured by how loud you shout, but by how silent you can stay while still standing firm. Calmness is the crown of strong people. Wear it, and no storm will ever defeat you. When we look at life, one thing becomes absolutely clear. No matter who we are, no matter where we live, no matter how successful or unsuccessful we may appear to the world, we cannot escape problems. They come in different shapes and sizes. Sometimes it is health, sometimes it is finances, sometimes it is relationships, and sometimes it is simply our own inner battles. And yet, when we observe the people around us, we see two very different types of responses. Some allow the problem to take complete control over their peace of mind, their happiness, and even their relationships with others. While others, even though they go through equally painful situations, remain composed, thoughtful, and balanced. It is this calmness that makes them strong. Because calmness is not the absence of problems, calmness is the ability to not let the problem control you. Think about it. If we wait for a life that has no problems, we will be waiting forever. Life was never designed to be problem-free. Life was designed to teach us how to grow, and growth never happens in comfort. Every problem is like a teacher disguised in difficulty. And yet, when a problem appears, our first instinct is often panic. We start to think, why me? Why now? What will happen? How will I survive this? Our mind starts running faster than reality. We start imagining the worst outcomes, even before they happen. In that very moment, we surrender our peace of mind to the problem itself. The problem is not in control of our life, our panic is. And panic only makes things worse. But a calm person sees life differently. They don't deny the existence of problems. They don't pretend that nothing is happening. They feel the pain. They feel the stress. But they choose not to allow that pain to dictate how they live. They choose not to hand over the keys of their inner peace to the external storm. That's what makes them strong. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you are driving and suddenly it starts to rain heavily. The road is slippery, visibility is low, and the traffic is moving slowly. Now, two drivers face the exact same condition. One driver panics, starts honking, gets restless, maybe even makes dangerous decisions. The other driver slows down, turns on the headlights, and calmly navigates the rain. The storm outside is the same for both, but their inner state makes all the difference. In the end, the calm driver reaches the destination safely, while the panicked one increases the risk of an accident. The rain is not the real problem. The reaction is, and that is how life works. The strongest people are not those who have no rain in their life. They are the ones who have learned how to drive through the rain calmly. Calmness is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. And how do strong people train this muscle? They train it by reminding themselves that the situation outside is temporary, but the damage panic can cause inside can be permanent. When you panic, your blood pressure rises, your decisions get clouded, your relationships get hurt, and your focus disappears. But when you are calm, your body relaxes, your decisions improve, and your ability to find solutions increases. Calmness is not passive, it is the most active state of problem solving. Because when your mind is still, the answers rise to the surface. There's a beautiful analogy often used: when water is muddy, you cannot see through it. But if you let the water settle, the mud sinks and clarity returns. Our mind is exactly the same. When a problem comes, it shakes the water of our thoughts. Everything feels muddy, nothing looks clear. But if we let the mind settle, if we don't allow panic to control us, clarity slowly reappears. That is why calmness is such a powerful strength. It restores clarity when everything looks broken. Strong people understand this truth. They may feel fear, but they don't act out of fear. They may feel pressure, but they don't allow pressure to define their decisions. They remind themselves that calmness is a choice, not a gift. And every time they choose calmness, they get stronger. Now let's go a little deeper. Why do most people fail to stay calm? It is because they mistakenly believe that peace will come only after the problem is solved. They think, once this financial crisis is over, then I'll be calm. Once this relationship is fixed, then I'll be calm. Once I get the job, then I'll be calm. But the reality is the opposite. Calmness is not the reward you get after the problem is solved. Calmness is the tool you use to solve the problem. If you wait for the storm to end before you find peace, you may never find peace. But if you carry peace through the storm, you will always find your way out. This is why strong people remind themselves, my calmness is my power. They do not postpone peace to a future moment. They cultivate peace in the present moment, even when things are uncertain. And because they are calm, they can handle uncertainty better than anyone else. Think about the great leaders, thinkers, or spiritual teachers in history. They were not people who never faced challenges. In fact, many of them faced greater challenges than most of us ever will. Yet, they stayed calm. Why? Because they knew that their calmness was their anchor. A ship without an anchor gets tossed around in the storm, but a ship with a strong anchor stays steady. Calmness is that anchor for the human mind. And when you think about it, calmness is contagious. A calm person influences the atmosphere around them. In a family, when one person remains calm during a crisis, everyone else begins to feel more secure. In a workplace, when the leader stays calm during a setback, the team feels inspired to keep going. In society, when voices of calmness rise above the noise, people feel hope. Strong people know that their calmness is not only for themselves, it is also a gift they give to others. So, how do we cultivate this calmness? The first step is awareness. We need to catch ourselves when panic begins. The moment we feel the heart racing, the breath shortening, the mind running in circles, we need to pause. Just a small pause can make all the difference. Take a deep breath, remind yourself, this is not the end. This is just a phase. That pause breaks the chain of panic. And then slowly, calmness enters. The second step is perspective. Strong people always look at problems from a larger perspective. They ask themselves, will this matter 5 years from now? Is this really worth losing my peace over? And very often, the answer is no. When we zoom out, problems look smaller. When we stay stuck in the moment, they look bigger. Perspective brings calmness. The third step is faith. Whether it is faith in God, faith in life, or simply faith in the process of growth, strong people remind themselves that the universe has carried them through every past challenge, and it will carry them through this one too. This faith allows them to relax even in the middle of storms. Faith tells them, this too shall pass. And that faith becomes the foundation of calmness. When you combine awareness, perspective, and faith, calmness becomes natural. You don't have to force it. It becomes your second nature. And once calmness becomes your nature, problems stop controlling you. You start controlling how you experience problems. That is true strength. So remember, calmness does not mean a life without problems. That is a fantasy. Calmness means having the wisdom to not allow problems to dictate your emotions, your decisions, and your peace. Strong people are not those who never face storms. Strong people are those who carry stillness within, even as the storm rages outside. That is why calmness is not the absence of problems. Calmness is the power to not let problems control you. And when you master this, no problem, no storm, no chaos will ever have the power to defeat you. In life, the quality of our decisions depends on the quality of our mind. A calm mind is like a clear mirror. It reflects reality as it is. A disturbed mind, on the other hand, is like a broken mirror. It shows everything distorted. And that is why strong people value calmness so deeply. Because when the mind is calm, solutions naturally reveal themselves. But when the mind is disturbed, we get trapped in confusion, reacting instead of responding, and complicating what could have been resolved. Think of it this way. Imagine trying to read a book while someone keeps shaking it in your hands. The words blur, the lines overlap, and no matter how hard you try, you can't understand a thing. But the moment the book is steady, the words make sense. That is exactly how our mind works during problems. When disturbed, it shakes everything up, creating chaos where clarity is needed. When calm, it steadies our thoughts, and suddenly, what looked impossible starts to look manageable. Many of us underestimate the cost of a disturbed mind. We think stress helps us work harder. We think worry shows we care. But the truth is, a disturbed mind blocks our intelligence. It narrows our vision. We only see the problem, not the possibility. Panic creates blind spots. Calmness opens pathways. Strong people know this, and that is why they practice calming their mind before tackling their challenges. Consider a firefighter. Imagine a building is on fire. People are screaming, smoke is everywhere. If the firefighter panics, lives are lost. But if the firefighter stays calm, thinks step by step, finds the right path, and leads others out, lives are saved. The fire is the same, but the outcome depends on the state of mind. A calm firefighter saves, a disturbed one loses. In our daily lives, we may not face burning buildings, but we face burning deadlines, burning arguments, burning insecurities. And just like the firefighter, our outcome depends not on the intensity of the fire, but on the stability of our mind. Think about relationships. A simple misunderstanding can escalate into a storm when both people are disturbed. Words are said in anger, assumptions are made, and the connection breaks. But the same misunderstanding, handled with calmness, becomes an opportunity for deeper understanding. One calm person can prevent two disturbed hearts from destroying what they built. Clarity in relationships is born out of calmness, not confusion. Let's take an everyday example. Suppose you lose your wallet. The disturbed mind immediately thinks, my money is gone, my cards are gone, I'm finished, everything is ruined. That panic doesn't bring the wallet back, it only increases stress. The calm mind, however, says, okay, let's retrace my steps. Let's call the bank and block the cards. Let's inform the authorities. Same problem, but the calm mind finds solutions, while the disturbed mind magnifies the damage. This is why ancient wisdom often compares the mind to a lamp. A calm mind is like a steady flame, it illuminates everything around. A disturbed mind is like a flickering flame, it creates more shadows than light. Strong people protect the lamp of their mind because they know clarity is their greatest asset. In science, there's something called the fight or flight response. When we panic, our brain releases stress hormones. Our body prepares to fight or run. But in this state, the part of our brain responsible for reasoning and problem solving temporarily shuts down. We literally cannot think straight. That's why people say things they don't mean in anger or make decisions they regret later. But when we calm ourselves, when we breathe and relax, our brain's reasoning center reactivates. Suddenly, solutions that were invisible in panic become visible in peace. Strong people don't deny their stress, they manage it so their intelligence can function. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. If he had let a disturbed mind dominate, he would have given up after the first 100 failures. But he stayed calm, treating every failure as a lesson, not a curse. That calm persistence allowed him to see solutions where others only saw defeat. Calmness is not laziness. It is not inaction. Calmness is focused action. It is energy directed with clarity rather than wasted in confusion. A disturbed person runs in circles. A calm person walks straight to the goal. We can all relate to times when panic made things worse. Think about an exam. A student who panics forgets everything they studied. The answers are in their brain, but panic locks the door. A calm student recalls, organizes, and writes with clarity. The difference between failure and success often comes down to the calmness of the mind in that crucial moment. Now ask yourself, how many times in life have you reacted in disturbance only to regret later? Words spoken in anger, decisions made in haste, friendships broken in confusion. These are the costs of a disturbed mind. Strong people avoid these costs because they refuse to hand over their decision making to panic. They pause, breathe, calm themselves, and then act. That pause is their secret weapon. Let's use nature as an example. Look at a forest. When the wind blows, the trees bend, the leaves shake, the branches rustle. But the trunk remains steady. The strength of the tree is in its steadiness, not in its shaking. Similarly, the strength of a person is in their ability to stay steady when the winds of life blow. The disturbed person shakes like the leaves, while the strong person stands like the trunk. And here's the beauty of calmness: it doesn't just solve problems, it prevents new ones. When you are calm, you don't say words that create fresh wounds. When you are calm, you don't take impulsive steps that add more challenges. Calmness protects you from creating unnecessary storms. Think about leaders in history who inspired millions. Were they loud and restless, or were they calm and composed? Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln. These leaders carried calmness in the face of immense challenges. They were not free from problems. They were surrounded by problems. But their calmness allowed them to see a path forward when others only saw chaos. That is why people trusted them. Calmness gave them vision. Now you might wonder, how can I develop this calmness when my mind is always racing? The answer lies in practice. Meditation, breathing exercises, journaling, or even simply pausing for a few seconds before reacting. These practices train the mind to slow down. The more you train, the more natural calmness becomes. And once calmness becomes your habit, confusion loses its grip on you. Another way to build calmness is by focusing on gratitude. When you count what you still have instead of what you lost, your mind feels grounded. Gratitude calms the restless heart. It reminds you that not everything is broken, and from what is left, solutions can be built. Strong people also surround themselves with calm influences. Just as anxiety spreads quickly, calmness spreads too. When you spend time with calm, grounded individuals, their energy influences yours. When you fill your mind with wisdom instead of noise, peace grows naturally. So remember this: the mind is like water. When disturbed, it hides the treasures beneath. When calm, it reveals them. Solutions are always there, waiting to be discovered, but only a calm mind can see them. Confusion belongs to the disturbed, clarity belongs to the calm. And that is why strong people stay calm. Not because their life is easy, not because their problems are small, but because they know that panic blinds and calmness enlightens. Every time life challenges you, you have a choice: see through the eyes of confusion or through the eyes of clarity. And clarity is born only in calmness. One of the most powerful yet underrated abilities in life is the power to pause. In a world that constantly pushes us to react instantly, to reply immediately, to decide on the spot, strong people know that true strength lies in not reacting too quickly. They pause, and in that pause, something magical happens. Wisdom enters, strength grows, clarity arrives. That pause is the birthplace of better choices, stronger relationships, and a peaceful mind. Most of the damage we do in life comes not from the problems themselves, but from our instant reactions to them. Words spoken in anger that cannot be taken back. Decisions made in haste that cannot be undone. Relationships broken because of one uncontrolled moment. How many times have you looked back and said, if only I had taken a moment to think, I would not have said that, I would not have done that. That moment you skipped, that was the pause. Strong people never skip it. They live inside it. Think about a car. When you see a red light, you hit the brakes. If you don't pause at that light, you risk an accident. The pause at the signal saves lives. In the same way, life presents us with emotional red lights, moments where anger, fear, or temptation tries to push us forward recklessly. If we don't pause, we crash. But if we pause, if we give ourselves that moment, we avoid damage. Strong people treat the pause like a sacred break. They know when to stop, when to breathe, when to wait before moving forward. In relationships, this pause is a lifesaver. Imagine a heated argument. One person shouts, the other shouts back, and soon the argument becomes a war. But if one of them pauses, takes a breath, and chooses not to react immediately, the fire starts to cool down. The argument doesn't escalate. Space for understanding opens. That pause saves the relationship from words that might have left scars forever. Strong people are not those who never feel angry. They are those who pause long enough to let anger pass without destroying peace. There's a story of a monk who was insulted by a man in public. People expected the monk to react, to defend himself, to fight back. But he stood quietly, smiling. Later, when asked why he didn't respond, the monk said, if someone offers you a gift and you refuse it, the gift remains with them. In the same way, if someone offers me anger and I do not accept it, it remains with them, not me. That wisdom came from the pause. Instead of reacting instantly, he created space between the insult and his response. And in that space, wisdom guided him. Science also supports this truth. Studies in neuroscience show that when we are emotionally triggered, our amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fight or flight, takes control. In that moment, logic and reasoning shut down. But if we pause, even for a few seconds, our rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, gets time to step in. That small pause literally changes how the brain functions. It shifts us from reaction to response. Strong people understand this, so they don't rush to react. They give their brain the pause it needs to choose wisely. Think of it like this. If you drop your phone in water, your first impulse might be to switch it on and check if it works. But if you pause, you know that turning it on immediately could short-circuit it. The wise thing is to wait, dry it out, and then switch it on. Life is the same. When a problem drops into your day, your first impulse is to react. But reacting too soon often makes things worse. The wise choice is to pause, let emotions settle, then act. Strong people see the pause as their secret superpower. They know that power doesn't come from speaking louder or moving faster. It comes from waiting long enough to let wisdom catch up with emotion. That is why they don't get dragged into every fight. That is why they don't respond to every insult. That is why they don't rush into decisions they may regret. Their pause protects them. This pause also gives birth to strength because it teaches patience. In a world that glorifies instant results, patience looks weak. But in reality, patience is strength under control. Anyone can react in a second. It takes strength to hold back, to breathe, to wait. And when you wait, life often reveals better options than the one your impulse was pushing you toward. Many times, the thing we felt like reacting to in anger looks smaller a few hours later. Many times, the opportunity we felt like grabbing immediately shows its true colors if we just wait. The pause gives time for truth to reveal itself. Think of a glass of hot tea. Right after boiling, if you try to drink it, it will burn you. But if you wait for it to cool, the same tea refreshes you. The tea didn't change, it was the pause that made the difference. Strong people live by this principle. They wait for the heat of the moment to cool down before acting. That is their strength. Even in professional life, this pause can change everything. Imagine being in a meeting where someone criticizes your work unfairly. A disturbed mind reacts immediately, defensive, angry, emotional. But a calm person pauses. They listen fully, they think, and they respond with dignity. Often, that calm response turns critics into allies. The pause transforms conflict into collaboration. This is why strong leaders are not the ones who speak first, but the ones who listen first, pause, and then speak with clarity. Now you might ask, how can we build this habit of pausing when everything in life feels urgent? The answer is practice. Start small. When someone irritates you, instead of snapping back instantly, count to 3 before replying. When you receive a message that makes you angry, don't respond immediately. Put the phone down, breathe, and reply later. When you feel the urge to decide instantly, ask yourself, do I need to answer now, or can it wait? Every time you practice pausing, you strengthen that muscle. And soon, it becomes natural. The pause is also deeply connected to awareness. Most people react instantly because they are not aware of their own emotions. They feel anger rising but don't notice it until it explodes. Strong people are aware. They can feel the emotion rising, and that awareness itself creates space. They say to themselves, I am feeling angry. Let me not speak right now. That self-awareness allows them to pause and prevents regret later. Let's also remember that pausing does not mean inaction. It does not mean weakness. It means thoughtful action. A pause is not giving up. It is gearing up. It is the difference between a knee-jerk reaction and a wise response. Just like an archer who pulls the bowstring back before releasing the arrow, the pause is what gives your actions power and accuracy. Without the pause, the arrow flies aimlessly. With the pause, it hits the target. And this pause has another hidden gift. It brings peace. When you react instantly, you often regret later. That regret steals your peace. But when you pause, think, and then act, even if the outcome is not perfect, you are at peace knowing you chose wisely. Strong people sleep peacefully at night not because life is easy, but because they know they paused enough to act from wisdom, not from impulse. So the next time life triggers you, remember this truth. That single second of pause can save you from years of regret. That single breath can prevent 1,000 words of apology. That single moment of waiting can open doors that rushing would have closed. Strong people pause before reacting, and in that pause, they find both wisdom and strength. And if you can learn to pause, you too will discover that what feels like a small moment is actually the key to a powerful life. Life is full of storms. Sometimes they come quietly, like a drizzle of problems that inconvenience us. Sometimes they come violently, like a hurricane that threatens to tear everything apart. Storms are part of being alive. We face them in health, in finances, in relationships, and even within our own minds. And yet, there is one truth that history, experience, and nature itself keep reminding us: every storm eventually passes. It does not last forever. The night may feel endless, but dawn always comes. And the strong ones, the ones who don't just survive but grow through storms, are those who respond with faith instead of reacting with fear. Fear is our most natural response. When something uncertain happens, the mind rushes to the worst possible outcome. We think, what if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if this pain never ends? Fear exaggerates the storm. It makes the clouds look darker, the thunder sound louder, and the rain feel heavier than it actually is. But faith does the opposite. Faith whispers, This storm has an expiry date. This rain will stop. The sun will shine again. Hold on. And that whisper of faith gives us the strength to keep walking, even when the path is muddy and unclear. Think about it. Have you ever been through something you thought you would never overcome? Maybe it was heartbreak, maybe a financial struggle, maybe a health challenge. At that time, it felt like the end. You thought, how will I ever get through this? And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing. The storm passed. It always does. Fear told you it would last forever. Faith brought you to today. That is why strong people choose faith. Nature itself teaches us this lesson. After the darkest night, the sun always rises. After the heaviest storm, the skies eventually clear. Seasons change. Winter gives way to spring. Nothing in nature is permanent, not even the most powerful storm. If nature follows this law, why would your life be any different? Strong people remind themselves of this. They look at the storm and say, this is not forever. This too shall pass. That belief becomes their anchor. Fear is like a blindfold. When you wear it, you stumble, you fall, you lose your way. Faith is like a lantern. It may not show the entire path, but it gives enough light to take the next step. Strong people don't always know how the storm will end. They don't have all the answers, but they keep taking the next step, guided by faith, not paralyzed by fear. Think of sailors at sea. When the storm comes, they don't throw themselves into the water in panic. They hold the sails, they adjust the direction, they trust the ship, and they trust that the storm will eventually calm. Fear would drown them. Faith keeps them afloat. Life is the same. The storm may shake you, but if you hold steady with faith, you will not sink. Fear also steals the present. When we react with fear, we stop living today because we are too busy worrying about tomorrow. We miss the little joys that still exist even during the storm. But faith allows us to live in the middle of the rain, to smile even as we wait for the rainbow. Strong people don't postpone their happiness to a future day when the storm is gone. They find small moments of joy, gratitude, and peace even while the storm is raging. That is faith in action. In relationships, this principle is powerful. Fear says, this argument will break us forever. Faith says, this is just a rough patch, and with love, we can get through it. Fear reacts, shouting, blaming, walking away. Faith responds, listening, forgiving, staying. That is why relationships anchored in faith survive storms that fear could never endure. History is full of examples of people who faced unimaginable storms but responded with faith. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Fear could have destroyed him, but faith kept him alive, hopeful, and eventually victorious. Faith told him, this storm will pass. And it did. His story reminds us that storms are temporary, but the strength we build through faith lasts forever. There is a saying that fear looks at the storm and sees destruction, while faith looks at the storm and sees growth. Because storms, as painful as they are, make us stronger. They strip away what we don't need. They teach us lessons comfort never could. They force us to discover parts of ourselves we didn't know existed. Fear wants us to run from the storm. Faith tells us to walk through it, knowing we'll come out wiser and stronger. It's important to understand that faith is not denial. Faith doesn't pretend the storm isn't real. Faith feels the rain, hears the thunder, acknowledges the fear, but chooses not to be ruled by it. Faith doesn't close its eyes. Faith opens its heart. That is why strong people can remain steady in chaos. They are not blind. They are deeply aware. But they choose to focus on the light beyond the clouds. Fear says, you are alone. Faith says, you are carried. Whether you call it God, the universe, destiny, or simply the resilience of the human spirit, there is something bigger than you that has carried you through every storm of the past. And that same force will carry you through the storms ahead. Strong people rest in that assurance. They may bend, but they do not break. Because faith is their backbone. Let me give you an image. Imagine holding a candle in a storm. If you protect it with both hands, shielding it from the wind, the flame survives. That flame is your faith. Fear leaves it unprotected, and the storm blows it out. Faith guards it carefully, ensuring it continues to shine until the winds die down. Strong people guard their inner flame. That's why they don't get swallowed by darkness. So, how do we cultivate faith in the middle of fear? The first step is remembrance. Remember the storms you've already survived. Let your past victories remind you that you are stronger than you think. The second step is perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this storm teaching me?" That shift turns fear into faith. The third step is trust. Trust that storms don't last forever. Trust that even in chaos, life is shaping you into someone stronger. Every storm in your life will eventually end. No matter how dark it feels now, light is waiting. No matter how heavy the rain, the clouds will clear. But what will define you is not the storm itself, but how you chose to face it. Did you let fear blind you, or did you let faith guide you? Strong people choose faith. Not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. Faith gives them patience when fear tells them to quit. Faith gives them courage when fear tells them to hide. Faith gives them hope when fear tells them it's hopeless. And because of faith, they endure until the storm passes. So the next time you find yourself in the middle of chaos, remember this: the storm is temporary, but your strength can be permanent. Don't let fear decide your actions. Respond with faith. Tell yourself, this is not the end. This is just a chapter. The story is still being written. And when the storm passes, as it always does, you will emerge not only unharmed but transformed. Every storm eventually passes. Hold on, stay calm, choose faith. Because in the end, faith doesn't just help you survive the storm, it teaches you how to dance in the rain until the sun shines again.